The Devils have lost 2 straight games. They're still in a playoff hunt, but there's some drama that we need to address that transpired after their recent outing against the Senators, and it involves Sheldon Keefe and Johnathan Kovacevic. Who was in the right? Who was in the wrong? We have a lot to break down in today's episode of Locked On Devils. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Scores! Oh, Steven stepped up, nailed it. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here at the Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play announcer, Devils Wire Pucks Pitchforks, and also part-time credential media member, Trey Matthews. What's on the agenda for today's episode? Well, when this episode goes live, the New Jersey Devils are scheduled to take on the Vancouver Canucks at The Rock. It is a Hughes Super Bowl minus Jack Hughes. We saw the same thing pan out last year where Luke and Quinn did battle. Unfortunately, Jack was not by Luke's side. Kind of deflates it a little bit, but I think it's safe to say that the Devils are in desperate need of a win because they have lost 2 straight games, and don't look now, but the New York Rangers are in their rearview mirror. So in the first segment, I will share my brief thoughts of the Devils' latest matchup against the Senators, and we're going to do something that I have anxiously been doing the past few weeks, looking at the playoff picture. Because if I said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Best case scenario for the Devils is to finish top 3 in the Metro and avoid the wild card race because, no pun intended, it's pretty wild down there. I think some of you have grown sick of me saying it, but it's so true. Then in the second segment, we're going to discuss some drama. Sheldon Keefe called out Johnathan Kovacevic during his post-game media availability after the Devils lost to the Senators. So in the second segment, I will take that time to give you guys the background information. And then in the third and final segment, I will give my final verdict. Who was in the wrong? But I think we all know who was pretty much wrong in that sort of instance, but we'll get to that a little later. All right. So on Saturday, the Devils lost to the Senators 3-2. And I said it before that the Senators are one of the hottest teams in the NHL. Brady Tkachuk, he's leading the way. He's trying to get Ottawa into a playoff position. As I am recording this episode, they are still in the first spot in the wild card. They have 79 points. They are 7-2-1 in their previous 10 games. I think barring anything catastrophic happening, the Senators pretty much got the first wild card spot locked up, especially since we're down to the final stretch of the season, followed by the Montreal Canadiens with 75 points. But to give you guys my thoughts as to what went wrong for the Devils on Saturday, it was another instance in which they played 40 good minutes of hockey. Unfortunately, there was a 20-minute stretch in which they didn't play a good brand of hockey. The past few episodes, I've been talking about how the Devils were pretty much lacking in the third period. We saw it in that implosion against the Flames. We saw it in Columbus when Jake Allen basically had to single-handedly steal the win for the Devils. And in the game against the Senators, the Devils had a good first period. They had a good third period, but it was the second period that did them in because they allowed 3 goals in that period and they picked up a penalty at the wrong possible time. So the Senators went up 2-0 thanks to Tkachuk and Batherson. It was like a 30-second difference. That's not really good. That was pretty early in the second period, so not a good way to start that period. But a few minutes later, Nico Hischier, he responded on the power play. netting his 30th goal of the season, cut the lead to 1. But not too long after that, Stefan Nason, he got a penalty for tripping, and the Senators made the Devils pay. David Perron, he scored the 3rd goal for the Senators, giving them a 3-1 lead heading into the final period of regulation. And the Devils' valiant effort came up short. Erik Haula, he scored when there was about 30 seconds remaining in the game, but it was too little, too late. Short, simple, to the point. The Devils have got to stop with these one-period misfortunes. They have to play good from start to finish, and they can't just rely on their goaltending to bail them out. And they cannot be making mental mistakes because that can cost them in the end. And you never know when a game might come back to bite you, because the Devils were in a good position to win against the Flames, but they wasted those 2 points away because they completely imploded in the 3rd period. So those are just my brief thoughts when I saw the game on Saturday. I don't want to rehash anything, but just wanted to give you guys my perspective. Now, let's look at the standings. The Devils have 80 points, but the Rangers are 6 points behind them. The Rangers won their more recent matchup against the Canucks, and the Devils are slated to take on the Canucks later tonight when this episode goes live. I'm just going to say this for the sake of argument. If the Devils lose this game against the Canucks and the Rangers win their next game, then guess what? Your points cushion has shrunk from 6 to 4. And there aren't that many games remaining for New Jersey. They only have 11 on the docket. So you really cannot waste any points, especially since you have one of the easiest schedules to finish off the season. The Islanders have 73 points. They are 7 points behind the Devils, but they have one of the hardest schedules to close out the season. The Blue Jackets, they have 71 points. They're 2-7-1 in their previous 10 games. It was a hell of a season for the Blue Jackets, but I don't think they have enough firepower to overcome this deficit and get into a wild card position. Really sucks for them, but I said it before, playoffs or no playoffs, this Blue Jackets team should be very proud of themselves. And similar to everyone a part of the NHL discourse, I am rooting for Columbus going the rest of the way, but it's not really looking all that promising for them. My main point is that the Devils are still in a good playoff position, but you really cannot go on a lengthy losing streak. Otherwise, it's going to make things all that more stressful. And with the drama that's been added within the locker room, the Devils really need to get their act together. Speaking of which, I think that's a good way to segue into the next segment. But before we continue, let me tell you guys about Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller all day long. Personally, I love the no shells variety. I'm constantly on the go, constantly moving around, and I love having a snack by my side. Get snackin' and get crackin' with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Okay, I've already given you guys background information as to why the tension might be a little high for the Devils. Still 3rd in the Metro, but they don't really have that many points to play with. They have 11 games remaining, but according to Tankathon, the Devils have the 4th easiest schedule to close out the regular season. If the Devils can avoid a lengthy losing streak, I think they're still going to be in a good position. I said it before that if they really want to punch their ticket to the playoffs, all they have to do is play 500 hockey. They don't have to be all that consistent. They just got to limp to that finish line. But now it's time to talk about some drama that took place after Saturday's game. and it involves head coach Sheldon Keefe and Johnathan Kovacevic. Here's what happened. Johnathan Kovacevic spoke to the media about the importance of playing well in front of a home audience and how the team can use that as fuel, especially with the playoffs right around the corner. Take a listen.
I would think more urgency, especially taking advantage of these home games coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a pretty home-heavy schedule the rest of the way here. We got to make this place a hard place to play, a hard place to beat us. I think, that's something that we want to take pride in. And, we're in a fight, and hopefully that, gets us in that playoff mentality, 10, 11 games out, and we carry that into playoffs. So, obviously the results are tough, but we're in a fight here, and we're not going to back down.
Out of the 11 remaining games, 7 of them will be played at the Prudential Center, which definitely works into the Devils' favor. Now, head coach Sheldon Keefe was asked about Kovacevic's comments, and he provided quite the response. Here's what Sheldon had to say.
Kovacevic just mentioned to us that he thinks the team kind of needs to have that playoff mentality going down the stretch here. Is that something
Kovacevic just needs to play better. That would help.
Yeah. Yikes. Short, blunt, honest. Now, I published that video onto my social media account, and it went viral. It was talked about everywhere on TSN, Spittin' Chicklets, and I'm not the one who even asked the question. I got to give a shout out to Gabriel Trevino of NJ.com for asking Sheldon that question, and it definitely sparked a huge discussion on social media because, like I said, his comment was short, blunt, and Sheldon also stormed off in anger to end the press conference. While his frustrations are justified, he definitely could have handled that press conference a little differently. So let's talk about it a little bit more. The Devils extended Kovacevic to a 5-year, $20 million deal on the trade deadline. After being acquired over the offseason, Kovacevic has been making the most of his new opportunity. He's been a solid contributor on the Devils' blue line all season long. However, things have been a little tough for him recently. From a non-analytics perspective, Kovacevic hasn't performed his best over the past few games. Let me explain. On Thursday, he had failed to clear the puck, which resulted in a turnover, and Jonathan Huberdeau scored the game-winning goal as a result for the Calgary Flames. Then on Saturday, he got a delay of game penalty in the first period for sending the puck over the glass. Luckily, no harm came out of that, but let's be real, that's a silly penalty to pick up. During the 2-game span, Kovacevic has a plus-minus rating of -2. He does need to limit his mistakes, but I'm going to be honest, he didn't deserve to be singled out by Sheldon Keefe. For starters, plenty of other players need to play better. It's not just Kovacevic. Markstrom has a -7.99 goal save above expected rating since returning from injury. Stefan Noesen hasn't scored a goal in a month. And as you guys know, I'm a big fan of Stefan Noesen. Tomas Tatar hasn't recorded a point since March 1st. Nathan Bashin, don't even get me started on him. Sometimes he can be invisible. Let's just be real. And there's so many other players that need to step up their game. I know for the longest, we were talking about Erik Haula and him not registering a point since like Thanksgiving. Luckily, he's sort of broken out of his funk. The same could be said for Paul Cotter. Kovacevic hasn't been the worst performing player. So, in my opinion, Keefe didn't need to specifically call him out. Not to mention, Keefe didn't know the context of what Kovacevic was being asked. Keefe's comment was spur of the moment after a tough loss, so he's understandably frustrated with his team's effort. But the last thing that the Devils need is drama, especially since they're missing key contributors due to injury. And I've been seeing a lot of people make their own opinions as to why Sheldon Keefe reacted the way he did. I saw one person say, like, maybe the question wasn't phrased correctly because the reason Kovacevic mentioned having a playoff mentality was because he was asked about how performing in front of a home audience can benefit the team. And maybe Sheldon misunderstood the question. Like, why is Kovacevic talking about a playoff mentality when the Devils haven't clinched anything yet? And I'm going to talk about that momentarily, but I don't think there was anything wrong with the phrasing of the question. I think Sheldon Keefe was just frustrated. He was angry, and Johnathan Kovacevic's name was mentioned in the question. And unfortunately, Kovacevic just caught a stray, as people are saying on social media, because his name was specifically mentioned in the question. And I can understand why Sheldon Keefe is frustrated, because I think the Devils are just a frustrated team in general. What do I mean by that? Well, remember last month when Stefan Nason said to the media that it comes down to care as to why the Devils couldn't string together wins consistently. And Sheldon Keefe said after the Flames game just a few days ago that he was stunned with his team's effort, because the Devils have been good at closing out games this season. That game against the Flames, that was the first time this year that they lost the game in regulation after leading going into the third period. So that was sort of uncharted territory for them. And it's just a stressful environment right now. The Devils are dealing with injury. They're still in a playoff position. There's a lot of uncertainty around that, because how far can the Devils realistically go in the playoffs? Are they just bound to be a first round exit? I'm keeping my expectations somewhat moderate. It seems like they're slumping a little bit. They can't really get their offense going. And there's just a lot of players that aren't really contributing to the best of their ability. And I think Sheldon Keefe was just frustrated, which is why he stormed out of his press conference, because he was just mad with his team's overall effort. And I actually did speak to someone about the state of the locker room, because I'm not there all the time, but I think there is some tension right now. And I think it's just a combination of everything I just mentioned, which is just the stress that everyone is going through right now, because the Devils still a playoff team, but they're not really legitimate. And it seems like they've been searching for answers since Christmas time. That's a long time. That's like 4 months ago, if my math is correct. And let me make this clear. I'm not trying to defend Sheldon for his actions. I'm just trying to explain where it might be coming from. And you as a fan, you might be stressed watching the Devils, but imagine just playing or coaching right now. It's not an easy time right now. I think Sheldon is making the most of what he's being given, and I'll talk about that momentarily. But before we continue, let me tell you guys about Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Okay, final verdict on the whole Sheldon and Kovacevic drama. I do believe that Sheldon was in the wrong here, because I don't think he understood the context of the question that Kovacevic was asked. It's spur of the moment. I know frustrations and tensions are a little high, but he could have handled that press conference a lot better. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of players on the team that need to elevate their game. Let's be real. But Kovacevic, yes, he hasn't had his best performance the last couple of games, but he's been solid all season long, and he's been one of the bigger surprises for the Devils. I don't think it was fair to just call him out directly, but it was a question that unfortunately had Kovacevic's name mentioned in it, and Kovacevic just caught a stray from Sheldon Keefe, and fair or not fair, that's just how it all panned out. And I'm sure Sheldon will talk to Kovacevic about it and try to hash things out, but only time will tell if Keefe will readdress or amend his comment, because I have a good feeling that somebody will ask him about it the next time he has a media availability. But to play devil's advocate here, the team's primary focus shouldn't be on the playoffs for the time being, because they haven't clinched anything yet. So I guess if that's where Sheldon Keefe was coming from, I do understand, which is you can't be talking about the playoffs if you haven't clinched anything, because if the Devils continue to drop games and the Rangers continue to win games, or the Islanders continue to win games, or if the Blue Jackets catch lightning in a bottle and somehow, some way find themselves back into the mix, then it won't even matter, because you'll fall out of the top 3 in the Metro. Then you're in the middle of that dogfight in the wild card, and I don't want the Devils to be a part of it. And you don't want to lose your points cushion. Their main concern should be to win games more consistently, finish the season strong, then carry that momentum into the playoffs, and we'll see how everything else pans out. But for the time being, since they have not clinched anything, don't worry about the playoffs. Take it day by day, game by game, and then we'll see how everything pans out. Best case scenario, like I said in the first segment, Devils need to secure the Metro's 3rd position and avoid the wild card race. I still have faith in this team, but they cannot go on a lengthy losing streak. And I'm sure Kovacevic and Sheldon will talk about it, and only time will tell if they address it in one of their media availabilities, or even if they even want to talk about it or go into detail. We'll just have to wait and see. But that's what I make of the whole drama and the whole viral thing on social media. And for anyone who's saying that Sheldon Keefe doesn't deserve to be the head coach, or even worse, for people who are body shaming him, first of all, shame on you. Don't go, keep it hockey. Don't make it personal. Sheldon Keefe is working with what he has right now. I might die on this hill alone, but there's a lot of guys that wouldn't be everyday NHL players. Let's be real here. And I'm glad that players like Cody Glass are elevating their game ever since being dealt to New Jersey. But we've seen this happen before, where Paul Cotter, Eric Holland, Stefan Nason, they were point per game players, but now sometimes points can be tough to come by. Sheldon Keefe is working with what he has right now, and it's not easy now that you've lost your superstar player for the rest of the year. You've lost 2 big defensemen. You lost your offensive-minded defenseman in Dougie Hamilton. You lost a defensive-minded defenseman in Jonas Siegenthaler, and the Devils are still in the playoff hunt, believe it or not. In fact, they're still one of the top teams in the Metro. I think Sheldon has done a good job. This wasn't his best moment, but I'm sure everything will work itself out. And stop making it personal. This goes out to Maple Leafs fans, Canadiens fans, Rangers fans, and even some Devils fans. Don't make it personal. If you disagree with Sheldon Keefe, that's fine. I disagree with them, but let's not make it personal here. Come on now. It's hockey, not life. Anyway, that's my little tangent to close out today's episode. Let me know your thoughts. What did you think of the whole drama when you saw it on social media, or if you watched it live on TV? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Who was in the right? Who was in the wrong? Leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on podcast streaming service, hit me up on my personal X page app at TreyMatt4, or the show's X page app at Locked On Devils. As for today's episode, that's all the time I have for you. Continue to stay safe. Have a wonderful day, New Jersey. Go Devils. I'll catch you guys next episode. Thanks for listening once again.